Call this meeting to order. I'll make you aware we did have a 6:30 executive session before this meeting. We start with roll call.
Mrs. Elder? Present. Mr. Hauser?
Here.
Mr. Laser?
Here.
Mrs. Mays?
Here.
Mr. Moeller?
Here.
Mr. Music?
Here.
Mr. Palmer?
Here.
Dr. Zorch?
Here.
Dr. Laughlin?
Here. We start with the solicitor's report. Allocation and claims. Yes, thank you. We'll begin with the student report from Chairman Charlie.
Okay, first off, I would just like to thank everybody. This is our last meeting, so we're not going to see you once a month anymore. But I did want to say thank you. It's been an awesome experience, and I hope you've enjoyed our presence as much as we've enjoyed yours. So for the elementary schools, for the last time, Jack Yantos will have an author visit May 5th and 6th. 6th grade Olympic Day was on May 6th. Band and chorus spring concerts as well as educational field trips have been underway this month. All elementary PTOs organized a glow run on May 7th, which I heard was absolutely awesome and I've heard nothing but good things about. 6th grade camp will also be coming up soon. LES students are walking to the Latrobe Art Center to complete spring projects, and the primary grades are also visiting Adams Memorial Library. Once again, thank you.
As Hannah said, I'd like to thank everybody for the opportunities I've been given here at Latrobe High School, and I can see all the disappointment on all your faces. You won't be seeing us anymore. And I'd like to second that. I'm also very sad that this is our last report. But I do have to start getting serious now. In the junior high school, on Friday the 6th, the Environmental Club and the Learning Support released trout into a river that they raised from eggs. The Coral Cats are performing at the mall, Westmoreland Mall, on May 21st. And the junior high PE field day is May 27th, and this tries to start an active lifestyle for young adults. The senior high, the art show was set up for April 25th and held an evening reception with over 150 art pieces. The March for Dimes was held and raised money to support baby health. Many senior nights are held this week, so it would be awesome if you guys could come out and support. Girls lacrosse, which is tonight, boys lacrosse and softball tomorrow, and boys volleyball on Thursday. And that being said, I'd like to introduce next year's student council representatives, Natalie Christopher and Sam Cole.
Hi, I'm really happy to be here and excited for this new opportunity. I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm part of the volleyball team and the softball team. I do a lot with Interact Club, and in the summers I work as a lifeguard. And I just wanted to say I'm really excited about this new opportunity and look forward to seeing you all once a month.
Hi, I'm Natalie. Just came from lacrosse in case you couldn't tell. But I also do clubs at the school. I do P Club, Interact Club, Ski Club. I did other clubs in the past, and then sports, lacrosse. And I'm also really excited to be able to talk and be at these meetings and really looking forward to it. So, yeah.
On behalf of the board, I'd like to thank Hannah and Charlie for their service, and we're sad to see them go. They say they're sad to leave us also. But we appreciate all you've done. You've done a great job. Thank you. Appreciation for both.
Thank you very much.
So let's give them a round. And I'm sure the board would love to hear what your future plans are. So why don't you tell them your future plans?
My future plans are to attend Penn State University Park and major in broadcast journalism with a minor in multimedia, and maybe looking into the future walking onto the soccer team. So we'll see.
and double up not using microphones, to be honest. So, next year I plan to attend COTW for professional golf management. Like I said at the beginning of the school year, Fork Potteries Golf Course, please come visit me if you miss me. and I plan to minor in marketing as well. So.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you both again for working.
Yeah, I just want to comment that Charlie just invited us all to golf course and then left. You could ask if that's like free.
I clearly heard that.
Yeah,
I heard that.
Yeah. No, the only thing I wanted to note is that our kindergarten enrollment total is now over 200. We are at 217 for next year. So that number continues to rise. That's a significant increase from last month. So we'll keep our eye on that. Just a reminder to our friends from the media, if anyone would still need to register their children for kindergarten for next year, and that process continues, please call Jody Berhosky at the central office 539-4293.
Thank you.
That's it.
Shipping's free.
Thank you. Educational programs, Dr. Tepper.
Sorry, excuse me. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Krullick and Mr. Karunka, who are going to talk about presentations that will be occurring in the social studies classes at the junior high school.
Thank you, Dr. Pepper. Good evening. The junior high is undoubtedly a fascinating place, especially being around 7th and 8th graders who are full of energy, excitement, opinions, which are oftentimes verbalized or sent out electronically without thinking about who they may be offending. Fortunately, or unfortunately, you may look at it, there is no shortage of adults, oftentimes celebrities or TV personalities, who fall into the same trap, who provide perfect examples of inappropriate comments that oftentimes get plastered throughout our media that results in serious consequences such as job termination. And the first thing we often hear from these unemployed adults is that my comments were taken out of context, or perhaps I meant no harm. That may be true, but the fact is words can be very hurtful, especially to minority groups, as well as possible career ending. Since adults struggle with this at times, and that's no surprise to us that 13 and 14-year-olds may struggle as well, to understand that their words and opinions can be extremely hurtful and damaging, especially if you have a false sense of the world that you live in. We all believe that Greater Latrobe is a wonderful school district and a great place to live. But oftentimes we remark that the fact that we have a lack of ethnic diversity and our students gain a false sense or an impression of the world that they're about to go into beyond Greater Latrobe or Unity Township. Take a look at the 2016 presidential election. Has there ever been an election in United States history in which potential candidates were more polarizing than ever before? Have you ever heard of presidential hopefuls making so many controversial comments that oftentimes become talking points to our media or around the water cooler? Our students, to their credit, are paying very close attention to the upcoming election and the issues that are at hand, which they should. We want them to formulate. Again, we want our students to formulate their own opinions. And if they choose to want to discuss these opinions with their peers, we welcome them to do so. However, we want them to be able to express their opinions and beliefs in an appropriate, respectful manner. Thus, we believe it is entirely appropriate for us to talk to our students about respecting their classmates' beliefs, their opinions, their political preferences, their ethnic background, their gender identity, and or their religious beliefs, just to name a few. During the next few weeks, Mr. Kremke and I will be visiting all of our 7th and 8th grade social studies classes. We plan to talk to our students about respecting various opinions and differences among individuals. We also plan to share with them specific examples in recent history of individuals that thought they were exercising their freedom of speech, but found that their employers were not so impressed by their comments. We also hope to use this as an opportunity to discuss with our students our greater Latrobe policies on bullying and harassment as it relates to our school setting. So why are we doing this in the social studies classes? Mr. Kremp is going to tell us a little about that.
It's because Mrs. Swigert wanted to pull two old social studies teachers out of retirement, I think. Our social studies teachers at the junior high school do a great job, 7th grade, 8th grade, and 9th grade, of talking about differences of opinions, the rights of others, etc. It starts in 7th grade when they talk about world religions and different world cultures throughout our globe. In 8th grade, talking about the Bill of Rights and the fact that your rights begin where another person's ends. And just the other day, I was in Tom Pratt's classroom, and he was talking about Reconstruction after the Civil War, and talking about race relations between blacks and whites in the South post-Civil War. They do an excellent job. I think the purpose of us going into the classrooms is the fact that you as a school board, you set policy. You set policy for the school district. And sometimes when students don't adhere to that policy, the enforcement of the policy comes back to the building level and the building principal, or sometimes even the central office in our realm. Mrs. Swigert, Dr. Tepper, me, Mrs. Pinus, we deal with it all the time. So by having Mr. Krellick and I go into these classrooms, we felt that it would be an opportunity for central office administrators to also talk about maybe some potential consequences of inappropriately exercising your freedom of speech and talking about the boundaries that go along with exercising your freedoms within our school context. So our social studies teachers do a great job. As a matter of fact, when Chad and I talked about this at first, I said, Chad, when we meet with the social studies teachers, they're going to give us no less than 7,000 examples of talking about differences in their classrooms. And he said, I recognize it, I just think it's important for us to reinforce it.
Thank you.
Several agenda items coming up for next week. First of all, to approve tuition students for the 2016-2017 school year. Olivia Ray Carlquist, a Ligonier resident, and Maria Andrea Santos will be a senior student coming from Guatemala in Central America and residing with some Latrobe people. So that is exciting. One exchange student for next year. Also on the agenda will be to grant permission for a research study for a dissertation by Mr. Dan Kraft. Also, to approve the Delphi Education Partial Hospitalization Program Agreement, and we do that every year. There is an attachment there if you can read it. Approve E-Academy Consortium Membership Services Agreement for July 1st, 2016 through June 30th, 2019, a 3-year agreement. And that will be an agenda item for your approval. And also to approve an ECAT Academy Memorandum of Understanding between GLSD and GLEA for the 2016-2017 school year, and to approve summer education grants, which we do every year also. The next curriculum committee meeting date will be Tuesday, May 17th. That's next Tuesday, 5:30 p.m. here in CSC. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Baines.
Finance, Mrs. Elder?
Thank you. May is always a month when finance is a very momentous subject. So I'm just going to turn the whole section of the agenda over to Mr. Watson and let him go through.
Thank you, Mrs. Elder. There are quite a few motions on the agenda. A lot of them are just sort of formalities that we do annually. There are several attachments that you're welcome to read at your leisure. I'll try and summarize them quickly. Obviously, we will be requesting your approval for the treasurer's report and the payment of bills next week. The next item on there is approved gifts, grants, and donations. I'm happy to report that we received $45,000 in Project Lead the Way grant money for the district to use district-wide for STEM initiatives. Dr. Tepper received that money and forwarded that on to me, so congratulations on that. The other item that we received a donation of $9,000 from the Greater Latrobe Partners in Education Foundation. It is a grant for summer math and science camps. And we've received those previously before, so we'll be asking you to approve those two items next week. The next item is to appoint Act 511 tax collectors for 2016-17. We are required, the board is required to appoint these collectors annually. They'll be the same, the usual suspects as we've approved in previous years. Mark Burkhart for Unity Township, the City of Latrobe Tax Collection Department for the City of Latrobe, and Michelle Wilson for Youngstown to collect the per capita and the LSD tax. And yes, Bill, that is the $5 tax, the head.
Someday.
Yes, someday. It also asked to approve Burkheimer tax collector for the earned income tax collection for all three areas. Again, under Act 32, we're required to have a countywide tax collector, and Burkheimer is that collector who has been appointed. And then finally, to approve Westmoreland County Tax Collections Offices to collect for all three areas the real estate transfer tax. So that'll be on the agenda for approval. The next item is 2016-17 designation of depositories. Section 621 of the School Code of the Pennsylvania required districts to designate depositories annually. We have the same listing as we've worked with previously. They are the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania Treasury Department, Commercial Bank and Trust, First National Bank, Pennsylvania School District Liquid Asset Fund, First Commonwealth Bank, PNC Bank, Citizens Bank, and the Pennsylvania Local Government Investment Fund. We do not have funds currently with all of these groups, but if we chose to invest with any of them, they would have to meet all the Act 72 requirements, which basically say they're fully collateralized and secure investments. So, you know, it's just a list of those agencies that we've worked with historically. The next item is to authorization to invest funds for the 2016-17 school year. We're requesting the board authorize the Finance Committee or its designee, which would be me, to invest funds when appropriate. Historically, in the last several years, we have not done any fund investments because CD rates and those sorts of things typically tied to over a long period of time. The rates are significantly low, and it wouldn't make sense to tie funds up for a period of time at those low rates. But that is starting to turn a little bit. So we will be looking at CDs, money markets, joint investment pools, those sorts of things. But we will make sure all investments are secure. The next item is reappointment of the school district treasurer. The Section 404 of the Public School Code requires us to appoint a district treasurer. And once again, we're recommending First National Bank. They're sort of our bank of record. We have the majority of our accounts with them. And more specifically, we deal with Paul Polio. We send him our reports. He reviews those on a monthly basis, signs off and sends those back to us. So there's no change there. And then finally, under my section here, I have FEMA designation of agent. We made applications to FEMA for reimbursement for expenditures that we had during the January 2016 snowstorm. We could get reimbursed for overtime and whatnot, expenditures that we incurred. We're sort of at the final stages. We had an exit meeting with them. For me to go on and file online, the board has to authorize me as the designee to go and sign on all the documents. I'll tell you, the amount of money that we're looking to get reimbursed is $9,700, which is, I guess it's not the whole time, but it's better than nothing. It will offset those costs that we incurred over that period of time. So it's a good thing for the school district. So we'll ask you to approve that next week. Next on the agenda, 2016-17 insurance renewals. Mr. Richard Cassidy is here from Camp Ray, and he's going to be sharing with us what our renewal premiums look like for the next school year. So, Richard, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Let me first start by saying last year, this year, from an overall pricing standpoint, last year was $269, this year $265. And again, you have a pretty summary report that was distributed last week. So from a pricing standpoint, we're looking at the same, if not better coverage at a lower price. And I'll get into the main area to where that reduction came from. With the PSBA property and liability package, the property coverage was appraised and a slight increase in property values. The general liability coverage remains the same. And then last year, August of 15, the law enforcement liability was added. And again, that continues under the PSBA program. From a pricing standpoint, it was up slightly, less than 1%. So again, a slight increase in coverage on property, but the price remains flat. The next coverage is a commercial auto. So a few changes last year, adding 2 vehicles, deleting 1 vehicle. an overall change of $502. Again, from a coverage standpoint, the coverage remains the same, just changing vehicles. Workers' compensation is the biggest budget line item from the insurance standpoint. And looking back 5 years ago, the premium was over $200,000. This year, it renews at $103,000. Now, a variety of factors contributed to that: the establishment of a safety committee, modified duty, changing carriers 5 years ago, and loss control services. So again, in 5 years' time, the premium is been cut in half. Now, the dividend program that's offered through Highmark applies every year, starts fresh every year. This past school year, assuming nothing happens between now and the end of June 30th, there's an estimated return of premium of $21,000. Again, not guaranteed, it's based on audit, based on claims, but as of right now, a return of premium of $21,000. And in 2016 to 17, start fresh, and again, potential dividend roughly of $21,000. Again, not guaranteed, based on claims, based on audited premium.
Richard, if I could just add, I shared this with the Finance Committee, but in April, we received a dividend check for the 2013-14 school year, which was around $13,000. So I think the premium in that year was around $110. So it actually ended up netting out at 90. The premium ended up costing us $97. So we are receiving the check.
Yes. And in looking at competitive marketplace, each year we go to the marketplace for competitive quotes. For school districts, there's not a lot of insurance companies that have a program for school districts. Workers' comp is a little different because it's state mandated coverage, and coverage has to be the same. However, the closest quote was $131,000, and there was quotes over $180,000. So just to give you an idea of the differences from the workers' comp standpoint. The school leaders' errors and omissions, again, from a coverage standpoint, everything remains the same. From a pricing standpoint, roughly about a 1% reduction. And again, basically that goes from a overall industry within Pennsylvania and also the individual claim experience for the district. So again, pricing is relatively flat. The umbrella coverage, additional $5 million, which covers over the general liability, the auto liability, the workers' comp, employer liability, and most importantly, the school leaders' errors and omissions. Through the PSBA program, the umbrella covers over that. Some of the markets that we go to, the umbrella will not cover over the school leaders. So again, that's one of the benefits of the program. Student accident, pricing basically the same, it's up $200, no change from a coverage standpoint. The employee travel accident, no changes from a coverage standpoint or from a pricing standpoint, it remains flat. The crime policies, which is an employee dishonesty bond, again, roughly no change in coverage. We've added some different personnel, but again, from a pricing standpoint and from a coverage standpoint, it remains the same. As well as a public officials bond, again, no changes from a personnel standpoint and from a coverage standpoint, there's no changes. It renews every year, it's just a $100 flat fee. And the district 4 years ago added a data breach. So I'm sure you're all familiar with data breach and privacy concerns. So that has been added to the program. And again, from a coverage standpoint, no change in coverage and no change in price. It remains flat. And again, this is a market that more companies are coming in to offer the coverage. Certain business classifications are excluded or they're a higher risk. Doctors' offices, attorneys, financial planners, because of the privacy information. But again, the program remains the same, coverage remains the same. So again, just to summarize from a pricing standpoint, the premium is less than last year. The potential dividend, again, not guaranteed, roughly 21,000, as long as nothing happens between now and the June 30th. Any questions? Now again, Dan and I go over a full report with multiple details, so if there's any additional questions or anything that comes up, just let me know and I can review it individually. Thank you.
Next, we have Ms. Jillian Lloyd is here to review food service and proposed pricing for lunch and breakfast for next year.
Thank you, Dan. Good evening. In looking at the paid lunch equity formula for the school year, if our average school lunch price is less than $2.78, we're required by law to increase our school lunch prices by 2% plus the annual inflation index of 2.79%. Our current average lunch price is $2.32. So when you plug that into the formula, our required average for the 2016-17 school year is $2.44, which is rounded down to $2.40. So when you take the difference between $2.40 and $2.32, our required minimum increase is 8 cents. So I'm requesting that we increase school lunch prices by 10 cents. The elementary lunch price would go up to $2.30. The secondary lunch price would go up to $2.60. And when you look at the county averages, we're right in line. Elementary county average is $2.35, and secondary county average is $2.61. I'm also requesting a 5-cent increase to breakfast, and that's truly to keep us in line with county breakfast prices, and the average is $1.26.
Or $1.22.
Sorry, we can get $1.25. So 10 cents at lunch, 5 cents at breakfast to keep us in line with the county averages.
And if I could just remind everybody who's seeing, but years ago there was a contribution made from the general fund to the food service department just to help with money. But years back when it changed, it's 100% self-sustaining. So Jillian does an excellent job, her staff does an excellent job of controlling costs and looking for ways to help quickly increase participation so they can operate in black, which we're very pleased with.
Thank you.
Thanks. My notes, and I know how excited everybody is, so I didn't want to leave anything out. Mike likes to record this and listen back later. So here we are again. It seems like the year goes so fast. We're back again. It's May, and we're presenting the proposed final budget. What I want to do, I want to take a look back at where we've been, and then look at a snapshot of kind of where we're at today, and then finish up with some things out in the future that we need to take into consideration. There are handouts out there that I put at the front table. Board members who have attachments that have a lot more detailed information, you're welcome to look at it at any point in time. I want this to be an open dialogue. If you have a question, stop me. If not, if you want to give me a call, or at some point in time we can talk through these numbers a little bit more, because trust me, there's tons and tons of information. Okay, so expenditure history summary. Not including PSERS retirement, keeping that theme, because the drum we've been beating is, if it wasn't for that darn PSERS and that we have no control over, it continues to rise in cost, we've done a pretty good job of managing those costs that we can within the district. Okay, so let's review this real quick. In 2009-10, actual expenditures, less PSERS retirement, were a little over $47 million. Okay. In
2014-15, and what I'm doing is I'm looking at the most recent 5-year actual snapshot. So we don't have the actuals for 15-16 yet because we're still in that budget. So the most recent actual we have is 14-15, and that is a 5-year period. It was $46,984,000, so a little less than $47 million. That is a $211,000 or 0.44% decrease over a 5-year period. That's not common, okay? The cost of everything is going up. Obviously, we had the impact in 2011 and 12 with the state and federal government making significant cuts of around $2 million. We had to restructure the way in which we were operating. There's still a document posted to the district's website that reviews all those changes that we made to our operational budget and how those impacted us dollars and cents. But I just think that it's neat if you take out the retirement piece, over a 5-year period, the budget has actually gone down. Now we have, over 400 and some employees, so that's not easy to do. We are a labor-driven or service-provided industry. Okay, so then I wanted to look at expenditure history over that same period of time, just looking at the PSERS retirement costs. What were they? So we backed them out originally. Let's see what they were. In 9-10, the budgeted line item for PSERS retirement was a little over $1 million. It was 2% of all district operations, okay? In 2014-15, it grew to $4.7 million. It was actually closer to 10% of district operations. So you can see the significant increase there. It's $3,712,925, or a 364% increase in a 5-year period. That's pretty significant. But we've made through, I think, the biggest spikes that we were anticipating seeing, and I'll get to that a little bit at the end. Okay, expenditure budget. So now I just want to look at the 2015-16 year that we're in. Not including PSERS retirement. The amount is $47,459,000, so a little under $47.5 million. It's a $474,000 increase, around 1% increase, okay, over last year's operating costs, again, after we remove the PSERS retirement money. Move forward and look at what we're proposing for next year. So expenditure proposed budget, not including PSERS retirement. We're looking at a budget of $48,330,000, or about $871,000 increase, about 1.84%. What we're looking at increases not related to PSERS retirement in the 16-17 school year. Okay, so if we want to look at the expenditure history summary for just PSERS, okay, in 15-16, the budget of PSERS retirement was a little under $6 million, 11% of operations. In 16-17, it's going to be a little under $7 million. Now it's 13% of operations. Increased $1 million in a 1-year period, okay? So if we look back to 2009-10, if you remember originally, back then it was only 2% of our operations. It's climbed to 13% of our operations. That's a big piece of our budget right there. That's a big piece of our budget that we have absolutely no control over. It's state law, okay? And I'll get to that in a little bit too. If you were to look at 2009-10, I don't have a slide on this, to 2016-17, the increase was about $6 million to one budgeted line item over a 7-year period. Okay, so if you take that 7 years and you divide it out, it's about $846,000 per year increase for just that budgeted line item, which equates to about 2.5 mils per year. Okay, so just trying to put it into perspective for, what do we talk most with our community about is taxes. And why are our taxes going? Well, I think we all know around here, and anybody who's attended our meetings, why our taxes are going up. And obviously this shows why. It's because of PSERS retirement. I believe we've done a pretty good job of trying to control costs in other areas so that we don't see significant of an impact of this PSERS retirement as maybe some other school districts have who weren't able to make the same adjustments that we were. So again, about PSERS retirement. Okay, it stands for the Public School Employees Retirement System.
PSERS funding method is a state law, became law in 1917 and effective in 1919. There are adjustments made to the formula in 1983, 2001, 2011. I could go on about some of the changes that were made and the negative impacts that they've had on the retirement system and how they've grown the outstanding liability and the issues that we're dealing with today, but it's behind us and there's no use crying over spilled milk, right? But if anybody wants to visit or look into this further, you can visit the website and learn more about PSERS at www.psers.state.pa.us, and I encourage you to do so because there's a lot of information out there, especially if you like numbers. But the final thing here is there's no local control. It's not subject to a collective bargaining agreement. The state government dictates PSERS contributions and benefits levels. It's not local boards, not local school boards. There's no local school board input to this, okay? Okay, so PSERS retirement impact, again, in 05-06, the contribution rate was 4.69%. The net employer cost that we had was about $557,000. In 15-16, this current year, it's up to 25.84%. Next year, it's going to 30%. And it's projected to top out in 2022-23 at about 32%. The good news is we're almost there. The bad news is it plans to stay there until like 2035 before it starts to decline. So while we've accomplished it, building it into our budget, so we don't anticipate seeing any more significant increases in our budget after the 16-17 school year, it's still a large part of our spending, okay, so we can't just ignore it. This is just a nice chart we've used before. The black column shows our expenditures with retirement included in them. The orange column shows our expenditures without retirement. So you can see that there's a lot steeper slope there as a result of the cost of the retirement system. Okay, so summary of projected expenditure changes for the 2016-17 school year. So we're looking at an increase to our budget of $1,441,000 on the expenditure side. Okay? PSERS retirement accounts for $1,023,000 of that. So it makes up 71% of that increase. Okay, 71% of that increase in one budget line item. Makes it tough to put a budget together. Combination of all the other areas reflect a $417,000 increase, and I tried to break it down for you. Special education, we're looking to go up about $68,000 because of some placements and things. Transportation, we have a contract that's going up 3% next year. I'll tell you, it goes up in 16-17, but then it's frozen in 17-18. That's that contract we negotiated a few years back. EWCTC's budget increase is included in there. They went up by about 5.36%. The athletic budget increase is included in there per the contract. Coaching salaries or the value of a point goes up by about 3%, so that's included in that $73,000. What I wanted to note here, salaries are only going up by $174,000, and you might ask why? Because historically, when I mentioned we have over 400 some employees. When you get even if it's a 2% increase, you're normally around $600,000 or more in increases. So, what that number includes, it shows 3 retirements, okay, but only replacing 2 of the 3 retirements. And those 2 replacements will be at a lower level than the individuals that are leaving us, obviously. So there's some savings there. While it does include the creation of a new elementary autistic support classroom that will need 1 teacher and 2 classroom assistants, it includes the elimination of 4 elementary positions based on current enrollment, okay? Now, those 4 elementary positions we shifted internally. 1 will fill the the autistic support classroom. 1 will fill a vacancy that will be made for retirement. 1 will fill a vacancy that's going to be available through a resignation, and 1 is going to fill a vacancy that's going to be available through a leave of absence, okay? So that we're not talking about furloughing, it's just a internal shifting. And we talk about this quite often. The best time to look at your staffing is when you do have some level of attrition. You reevaluate your staffing and your structure and you make sure you're structured accordingly. All of those changes together result in a reduction of about $350,000. which is reflected, and that's why you're only seeing an increase of 174. If you add the 352, we're up about to where we are normally. Okay, summary of projected revenue changes. Local revenue is anticipated to go up by about 381,000. State revenue is anticipated to go up by 778. Again, the majority is from the reimbursement we get for retirement, which is estimated at about $511,000. Federal, we're looking at a decrease of about $60,000. Much of that is because of access. And others, there's no budgetary line item for that, so no change. So the total increase in our revenue is around $1.1 million. Okay? To dig a little deeper, local revenue, real estate tax collections are going up by $164,000. I've mentioned this before. We're fortunate within the greater Latrobe School District community. The assessed values of our homes continues to climb. In 16-17, it's anticipated that it'll go up by about $2.1 million. That natural growth multiplied at our existing millage rate generates about $165,000 for the school district naturally. Okay? So we're very fortunate to see that. Some districts see a decline, we see a slight increase. Earned income tax collections, we're bumping up by about $100,000. I mentioned Act 32 and Berkheimer being the county-wide tax collector previously. Prior to that, earned income tax brought in around $3.1, $3.2 million. We're up to about 3.7. So it requires all employers to withhold and report. It's done very good things for our school district and helped us financially. So it's a good decision. And then finally, refund of expenditures. I do trends on these, and I'm comfortable making the recommendation that we adjust it by about $111,000. Okay, state allocation assumptions. Okay, we assume level state funding for basic ed subsidy, ready to learn block grant, and special education funding. So we're basing these budget amounts on the actual 2015-16 allocations. Except for PSERS retirement, we're budgeting that increase because by law they're required to fund that. We're assuming planned fund reimbursement for existing debt service. I know that a lot of people have read articles about this. We sat through a webinar yesterday. While we have not received our reimbursement yet for the 15-16 school year, my understanding is we are going to be receiving it. It's not if we receive it, it's when. They're stating the 15-16 funds should come through in the first quarter of 16-17. And I would guess that the 16-17 money would be in by the end of the 16-17 school year. It's about $600,000 for the school district, but I believe we're comfortable leaving that in there. And then finally, we assumed increased funding for PSERS retirement by law state is required to match 50%, as I mentioned previously. The increase in PSERS is $511,000. Okay, so this chart just shows our funding from state and federal levels. The black includes the PSERS contribution, and the orange has it removed. You can see the orange, basically state and federal funding has been level. It's not listed up there, but if you look at the 11 and 12 school year, okay, the orange column represents $16,460,000 in subsidy received from the state, okay? The orange column in 16-17 represents $17,460,000 from the state. So that's a $1 million increase in state and federal funding over a 5-year period. Okay, now you have that. Now if I were to be able to go backwards and tell you what our 10-11 allocation was, for just not including PSERS, it was $18,220,000 in 2010-11. That's a reduction of $1,760,000 in 1 year. That's the year we had the significant cut. So they cut us about 1.8 in 1 year. And then in 5 years, we've slowly gotten about $1 million of that back. So
$1 million, not 1.8 million.
the cut was about 1.8 from the 10-11 to the 11-12 school year. But yes, Mrs. L, you're right, 1 million over the next 5-year period. So not 1 million a year, 1 million total. Okay? So mostly level funded. Okay, that leads us to some budgetary unknowns. State funding. I hate to say it, but your guess is as good as mine. Governor Wolf's proposed budget calls for a $324,000 increase in basic ed and ready to learn block grant. Okay? It also calls for a $90,000 increase in special education funding. So if we were to get what he's proposing, we're about $415,000. Right now, we do not have that included in the budget, okay, for obvious reasons. So there's an unknown there. Federal funding, there's always an unknown. They change that. You'll have a projection at the beginning of the 16-17 school year, and they'll change it 5 different times before the end of the school year. It's amazing. Okay, special education, obviously that's always an unknown. You don't know what type of students you'll have, what their needs will be. We have an idea of what they will be, but one student moves in that has a high need, and that could be a $60,000 to $100,000 cost. And then finally, student enrollment, we're assuming flat. Okay, future budgetary concerns. Okay, PSERS employer rate increase. We hope that it levels out. I would hope that it starts to decline sooner than 2035, but you don't know. And so that is a high liability and a large portion of our budget. So when you have that much of your budget dedicated to one specific area, it really ties your hands. Future capital projects, we're aware of LES, we know that's coming. We have a funding plan in place for that, but we're also recognized, because we're always looking 5 years down the road, that there are going to be other capital needs throughout the district, so we need to be able to plan accordingly. State budget allocation, we finally received the 2015-16 state budget on May 3rd, 2016. Okay? Got it about a week ago. So who knows what's going to happen next year, if they're going to release our money or not. Last year, they held a large portion of our funding throughout the fall. They gave us some money in January, and then we had anticipated it to start flowing, and it didn't flow. It's hit or miss, it's unfortunate. Federal budget allocation, again, that's always unknown. Act 1 index, again, we talk about this every year because of Act 1. You can't raise taxes when you need to, just because Act 1 does not allow you to do that, okay? So you have to be strategic, and you have to continue to plan, you have to plan for future. That's why, you don't just do one budget at a time, you're doing multiple budgets to try and get an idea of where you're going to be in future years. Early retirement incentives, we have a relatively young teaching staff, and we're aware of that. So maybe historically, we offer an early retirement incentive. You have 10 to 20 teachers retire, help to control your costs. I don't anticipate that happening anytime soon. Special education, we talked a little bit about that, the unknown with it, and unfortunately, transportation is tied to special education, because sometimes those students need placements, and transportation is how we get them there, and those are significant costs. As Mr. Mears could confirm if you were here. Okay, so take a look ahead. 3-year projected budgetary impact. This is actually supposed to be a positive slide. Net employer impact assumes state 50% reimbursement. So in 17-18, we know, based on the percentages that are out there, we're looking at about $174,000 increase in retirement costs. 18-19, 224, and 19-20, 200,000. So it's 0.51, 0.66, and 0.59 mils. This is a big difference over what we've seen over the previous years, which was closer to $600,000. So we're now at a third. So I want to say we're finally at the top of the hill. But as Mrs. Eller always says, we're still paying, which we are. But from a budgetary standpoint, we're getting to the end of it. So our recommendation this time is to approve a proposed budget in the amount of $54,820,384. This recommendation reflects a shortfall of about $340,000 or $1 million. Okay? Our next steps will be to continue to evaluate operating expenditures, which we continually do, as well as continue to review potential revenue funding sources. And again, really what I'm focusing on there is state. And we hope, boy, it would be great if the state adopted a budget prior to June 30th and we knew exactly what our allocation was, so we could come to you and say, we know we've got all the cards dealt to us, and here's where we're at. But that's unlikely. But we'll keep an ear out. So the final slides we hear are district accomplishments. Mrs. Swagger, if you want to take these.
I can guarantee you that the last 3 slides are positive slides, unlike maybe Mr. Watson's slides. Don't go anywhere. I'm sure people might have questions for you. Just some notes, and I think most of these you, as school board members, have been or are familiar with. The Pittsburgh Business Times Honor Roll rank, Greater Latrobe School District ranked 15 out of 103 school districts in southwestern Pennsylvania, ranked 2 out of 17 in Westmoreland County, and 59 out of 494 school districts in Pennsylvania. That recently came out about 2 weeks ago. Greater Latrobe Senior High School earned a silver medal, ranked 85 out of 676 schools for the U.S. News and World Report as part of the 2016 Best High School Rankings. We've increased implementation and teacher-student use of technology K to 8 with the addition of Chromebook carts and 3D printers this school year. Increased dual enrollment opportunities for students through Westmoreland County Community College specifically. We have many college partnerships that we utilize. I think most recently in the last few days you've read about the community college and their partnerships with various school districts, and of course we are one of those. We did add last year a supervisor of support services, K to 12, after doing a year teacher on assignment because we believe that position has been valuable. And this year we believe that, in this case, Lori Golovish is that person, has really added to the special education services. We installed security cameras throughout the junior and senior high school campus. Last year at this time, the board was voting on this and plans were being done. And building administrators in the senior and junior high school, I think, can concur that they have been very helpful this year in various issues that we've been dealing with. Trained district staff in ALICE protocol, and Mr. Franca can give you what ALICE means, but we all recognize with safety and security being paramount in all districts, this is something that is ongoing, and I think about 70 to 75% of the total district staff, including custodians, maintenance, and so on throughout the district, have been trained already, and more, and the rest of them will be trained hopefully by the beginning of next school year. We completed, last year we were working on this, curriculum writing, including mapping and common assessments. We have provided, and I know that all of you are familiar with this, ongoing professional development on STEM concepts through Carnegie Science Center. Mrs. Durban has been here many months providing updates to the board with students as well as Mr. Owens and so on through the junior and senior high school. We've initiated Career Pathways concept through NC3T on our Professional Development Day on Friday. They will be here to talk with all of our teaching staff K through 12 about the initiative with Career Pathways. You have seen the initial discussion of that. We continue to work with the Westmoreland County Workforce Development Organization. Many of you went to a dinner last fall. They are actually planning next year's fall dinner and to obviously give everybody an update. We've increased AmeriCorps tutors this year by 1. They provide help and remediation for our students, K to 12. We've increased elective course opportunities for 8th and 9th grade students through Project Lead the Way courses as well as in the senior high school, and I should have noted that as well. We've continued to seek grant opportunities to sustain and implement initiatives, including the NC3T, Common Sense Media, which you heard about last week as far as our librarians, and Project Lead the Way. And we continue to work with the Greater Latrobe Partners in Education Foundation to support district initiatives, which is a huge benefit to the school district, as I know all of you are familiar. And last, but certainly not least, and you will be hearing more about this as we move through the summer months as well as next year, initiated an alignment change with the 9th grade start time and assignment of administrative staff, and we're really excited about next year and initiating those changes. So those are just some of the few things that we've done in the 2015-16 school year. But I know all of you might have more questions about Dan and the numbers that he provided all of you. Thank you.
If there are questions, I'm happy to answer them. If there aren't any questions and you think about something, just shoot it over to me and I can get it back. Or prepare me to talk over the next meeting if there's something you want to elaborate further on.
I have one request. Could you go back to the recommendations slide and talk about what that means as far as what the board is being asked to do next week?
Okay, so the board will, there we go. Okay, so what we're going to ask is that the board will approve a budget of $54 million, a proposed final budget of $54,823,084. And what that means is we can't go higher. Okay, so the most we're going to go to at this point in time is $1 million. We cannot go above $1 million. We shared this with the Finance Committee. The administrators, we've talked about it. We shared it with the Finance Committee and received support from that committee. So depending on what happens with the state and the monies that they are able to work out as far as allocating to us, that can change that and possibly bring it down. Is that what you wanted me to speak to? Or is there anything else? Okay, there's no other questions. Thank you.
Very much, Mr. Wilson. And our finance committee meeting minutes from May are attached to your agenda. And the next finance committee meeting will be Wednesday, June 1st at 10 in the admin building. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Elder. I did have a legislative report. One thing that came out was talking about the school district should furlough employees for maybe more job performances, but they're saying the governor's going to be right now. Much to discuss about. Facilities operations and planning, Mr. Helga.
Thank you, Dr. On the agenda for next week will be, for your approval, will be awarding a bid for 16-17 medical supplies. And our next meeting will be on June 2nd, 3:30 at the admin building. Thank you.
Mr. Hodges. Student activities, as discussed and as the students brought to our attention and Mr. Cassidy in the next presentation, we will be on the agenda next week approving to change the student parking pass to $80 per year and $40 for half a year. And then the spring sports recognition night will be in the high school auditorium Wednesday, May 25th at 7. Community relations, Dr. George.
Just a couple of things about minutes for the Parks and Recreation. I just want to make a comment about the budget. I'm telling you, this budget process has been outstanding ever since I've been re-elected to the board. I think it's never been a surprise. We've all been very well informed. This is an ongoing process and everybody's involved with it. We hear about it all the time. There's never been a surprise. We're not counting on something that we had no idea what to expect. We know everything that's going to happen. We've heard about it before. We've talked about it before. I commend you. It's an excellent budgetary process. You do a great job for our school district. And I've always been of the opinion that we ought to go up to the max that we're allowed to increase the village, but miraculously every year you seem to be doing that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thanks for your good job.
Thank you. Attached is a summary of the WIU board meeting minutes from April the 26th. And the next WIU committee meeting will be Tuesday the 24th at 7:30 in the WIU. Thank you.
PWCTC, Mr. Buchanan.
Thank you, David. Attachment, the PWCTC joint operating committee meeting minutes for May 27th. And the next PWCTC joint operating committee meeting will be on Wednesday, May 25th at 7 p.m.
Is there a assembly coming up? What is that?
The graduation for EWCTC?
So they have some kind of recognition at the,
Yes,
when
I
is
should have
it?
said recognition versus graduation.
When
Yes,
is
it is
that?
Thursday, May 26th
26th?
at 7 p.m. here at the senior high school.
Okay.
Yes, the 26th,
What time is it?
7 p.m.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Board policy, Mrs. Elder.
Yes, we need a meeting, and I think we have agreed on Friday, May 20th at 9 a.m. If I'm correct,
Yes, whatever, you're good.
okay, at 9 a.m. at the admin building, all to eat. Not too big a pile, but interesting.
Thank you. Thank you. Technology, Mr. Palmer.
We got our meeting tonight at 6 p.m. here. Meeting minutes will be attached to next week's agenda. Next week's agenda. And that's it. Thank you.
Next week, I would ask the board to approve resignations. I might note that there are two teachers on the agenda for resignation for retirement, and they are Karen Vogel and Andrew Winnett. Both have served the district for many years as teachers, and we truly do appreciate their service. I'd also ask the board tonight to move on resolution number 221, which is the approval of professional personnel substitute teachers. And as explained, these people are in demand, and Dr. Tepper's got the interviews done, and we'd ask the board to move on this if you approve.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those, since this wasn't on the first meeting, we voted on the second, if there's any public comments, questions. There's no public here, the business reporter. Seeing no questions or comments, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, that passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. Next week, we will also ask the board to approve the support personnel appointments. As you'll note, there is no name for the part-time secretary. It's a 4-hour position at LES. Interviews are presently going on, and we will have a name for next Tuesday, as well as interviews are presently being held for a full-time custodian, and we will be able to share that name with you next week. In addition, there are 3 substitute, 1 secretary, and 2 custodian names that we would ask that you approve next week. In addition, we would ask the board to approve Jamie Morrison as the girls soccer head coach replacement, as well as approve the school psychology intern for the 2016-17 school year. Person's name is Eugene Joe, who is a psychology intern from Indiana University of Pennsylvania, who works with Dr. Soltis. And last is to approve a sabbatical leave for Kathleen Yanity, who is a Mountain View elementary teacher. Under other business, this coming Monday, May 16th, in working with the Chamber of Commerce, is the Excellence in Education Banquet. It recognizes the top 5% of our senior class. And one of the nice things about the district is not only recognizing those students, but they also select a teacher that they believe, or some significant person that has had a positive influence on their academic career. They are invited to the dinner as well. It's a very nice event, recognizing how people, adults, can influence students and their performance and where they go from here. In addition, there are numerous events that are going on at the end of this school year. The band and chorus programs that are listed there. The senior high and junior high recognition and awards programs. The senior high awards program is Wednesday, May 25th at 7:45 a.m. in the senior high school auditorium. That is a change this year. Last few years it was in the evening. This year they moved it back to the morning, so if you're able to attend, it's a very nice event. As well as the junior high awards ceremony is Wednesday, May 25th at 1 o'clock, also in our senior high school. Dr. Zorch referenced the EWCTC Senior Recognition Night. It's a very, very nice event as well, recognizing all senior students that are at the EWCTC from Ligonier, Derry, and Greater Latrobe. And the ceremony is in our senior high school auditorium, and it begins at 7 p.m. Certainly everyone is invited. The woodshop show that Mr. Kudok has on an annual basis is Friday, May 27th at 6 o'clock here. And then we have our 2 final programs for the senior class baccalaureate, which will be held at Trinity Lutheran Church on Thursday, June 2nd. And then graduation commencement will be held Friday, June 3rd. Rossi Field, weather permitting, obviously, is the key. Our board meetings, we are regular meeting next Tuesday here at 7:30, and then our June meetings is the 14th and the 21st. Thank you very much. I'd also like to just recognize and take an opportunity to honor, memorialize, and truly thank Dow Carnahan for his service to the Greater Latrobe Wildcat community. As you're all aware, Mr. Carnahan passed away very suddenly last week, a week ago, Friday, and truly a loss to the community as a whole, but also a huge loss to Greater Latrobe and our sports programs and actually all of our programs. So we give our condolences to the family and to the friends and to the community